Welcome back to part 2 of my powerful conversation with cult survivor, Sarah Edmondson. In part 1, we explored the subtle signs and red flags that can leave us vulnerable to emotional abuse, unsafe relationships, and even cults. In today's episode, Sarah opens up about the breaking point that finally woke her up to her reality, the courageous steps she took to escape, and how she ultimately became a whistleblower and on the cover of the New York Times. This is a story of resilience, bravery, and reclaiming your voice. Let's dive in.
This was after 12 years of indoctrination and programming and many things that set me up for being even open or even being in a situation where I would say to somebody, this is what's on the back of the book, Master, would you brand me? It would be an honor. So the best way I can kind of describe it is that I had entered into this new special it was pitched to me like a badass bitch boot camp, a sorority for women who want to really take their growth to the next level. It was pitched to me by this woman named Lauren, who is the daughter of the president of the company, who is not only my best friend, she was also kind of my therapist in this situation. Like, she was the person I went to for help. She was the godmother of my child. She married my husband and I, somebody that I trusted implicitly, like, with my life. Yeah. And I would have done pretty much anything that not anything, but she right. said, we're going to do this thing together. It's a master slave, but that's really just like coachee. Like, it's just a metaphor. And she lives in Albany. I live in Vancouver. It's not like I could actually be her slave. So for me, it was kind of like a game. And for people who don't understand that, I not that I approve of or whatever you think about sororities, when people join sororities or fraternities, they know they're going to be hazed and someone's going to treat them a certain way and they're going to go like clean toilets. And that's just sort of it's like an exercise, right?
Yeah.
And eventually we're all going to be
right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's sort of how it was pitched to me.
Okay.
And in that we were going to get a special mark that was like a tattoo. She may have even used the word branding, but I didn't know that people could get branded. Like, I thought that was something just for cattle. Yeah. But the night of the ceremony where I was going to get this tattoo, I found out that it was a brand and it was a symbol for the elements, and it was going to be really, I was told beforehand it was going to be the size of a dime and be really pretty. Now I see it and it's like 2 inches by 2 inches and it's not pretty. It's a disgusting, this is what, on the book you can see what's left of it, but this is like, it was like keloid and it was big, you know?
I saw, you showed it in your TED Talk.
I showed it in the TED Talk. That's right.
Yeah.
It was nasty. And that in and of itself is actually not what caused me to wake up. Is weeks later, a number of things happen. This is the part of the book that I feel like reads like a thriller, because the first 2/3 are like, when's she going to get her next stripe? And is she going to work through her issues? And then all of a sudden I'm in this like top secret program for like the Freemasons, and I can't even tell my husband about it, and I'm recognizing things are bad, but I'm like bought into this thing. Oh, that's the thing I got to say about the branding. I didn't want to get branded. I said I didn't want to get branded. Part of the thing to even be in this secret sorority was that you had to give collateral to make sure that they would hold it, blackmail, so that you'd never speak about it. So it was top secret. So,
oh my gosh,
that's how they coerce people to go to keep basically doing what was ever asked of you. So because I
wouldn't get like your like quote unquote deposit back or whatever,
you can't get your deposit back. Yeah. You couldn't get my collateral back. I'd taken a vow of secrecy. I'd taken a vow of obedience. So I'd taken a vow of obedience to do whatever Lauren said. And even when she invited me to this program, I'm gonna be like, but what if you tell me to rob a bank? She's like, of course I'm not gonna tell you to rob a bank. I'm doing things for you and your growth. Everything I ask you to do is for your growth. You have to do it. It's accountability. It's accountability. So now I'm like lying on this table. I don't want to get it. And that's over my head. So this is how coercion works.
Is it in front of people? Are you private? That's the only question.
I was with 4 other women, and the woman who was a quote unquote doctor, is an osteopath, and Lauren. So there was, Okay. And this is for people who want to really know about, this is like probably the most salacious part of the story, other than the harem, which I wasn't part of, so I can't speak to that. But we were naked. This was filmed. This is what we now know that he was inducing as trauma bonding, so that not only we'd be bonded, but we would be ashamed, which is mostly how these groups continue to exist. Is if somebody's able to even get out, they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, there's
like
so
I had
much
to really
shame.
So much shame. Like I can't, part of the reason why I've chosen to be kind of a mouthpiece for NXIVM, not a mouthpiece, that's not the right word. It sounds like I'm promoting it, but like spokesperson for the victims of NXIVM,
Yes.
is it
Yeah.
because, I mean, yes, I'm embarrassed, less so now because it's like
Good.
there's cults everywhere and whatever, I'm over it. But
Yeah.
I didn't have the same sexual trauma that so many of the other women did. And I feel like they can't, like,
Yeah.
and I get that. I get it. All the women that were even closer to him, they've run for the hills. They just, and that's how these things continue to exist, is people get out and they don't want to confront because they've been, to talk about what happened means they have to put themselves publicly through sharing what happened to them, often sexually.
I think shame is the absolute chokehold of all emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and it drives behavior or lack thereof. It's just, it breaks my heart for any, and we all have some sort of shame for something in our lives. And it just makes people feel so alone and so isolated. And it's the emotion of all emotions that I think, when we say sit with our emotions and let them pass, or like work through your anger, I think it's the hardest one to untangle. I think it is the most suffocating one. It breaks my heart. So I have all the empathy I can't imagine all the untangling. So I'm so glad that you use your voice as a way to kind of look your embarrassment in the eye and represent those who you said who still feel suffocated and silent. I think it's incredibly brave.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like The Vow, which is the documentary that came out after Keith went to jail for 120 years, by the way, I'm not jumping ahead, but he went to jail for a long time. And The Vow came out. It was kind of like the hashtag Me Too, for people feeling comfortable to share abuse. The Vow allowed for people to be like, hey, yeah, I was actually in either an abusive relationship, or I was conned by somebody, or I was in this religion that turned out to be a cult. Like people felt more comfortable to share. And now there's like a million cult documentaries on every streamer, and hey, great, more the merrier.
Yeah, right. Let's continue to like break through the surface and educate people. Okay, so you had mentioned it wasn't necessarily the branding that put you
Oh
over
yeah,
the edge,
thank
but
you.
it was the next piece, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So around this time, Mark Vicente, who I mentioned was the guy who brought me in, we ended
Yes.
up being business partners. We opened a center in Vancouver together. We
Okay.
were, he was like other than my husband, my closest confidant in NXIVM. I'm one of the only people that I could speak frankly to, because if any other person that I went up in the ranking system to, I'd get gaslit. If I went down for people that were beneath me in rank, that wasn't appropriate. So like I didn't have anywhere to share my grievances except with him.
And is your
And
husband in this as well?
he was in it as well, but he was sort of, we'd been kind of like, we didn't realize this, but kind of like on purpose, I think, from the organization, a bit divided.
Yeah, strategically
And
divided. Yeah.
strategically, yeah. So we weren't necessarily on the same page. I was also doing this like secret women's group. I wasn't allowed to tell him.
Oh my
We
God,
were
it's
going
so
back.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But we were also like splitting time between New York, like coastal. We were bi-coastal, like ships in the night. So we weren't particularly connected. Meanwhile, Mark is having his own crisis because, and this is in The Vow as well, people want to hear that whole story. His wife was actually the first to leave. So she leaves, she tries to leave discreetly, like, thank you, everybody. And this, you could leave. You could say like, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to go. She went back to LA to pursue her acting. And she got, speaking of shame on the inside, how dare she? She was, she never wanted to do the work. She, just shit talked. And I'm on the inside going, hey, good for her. Like she came in here to be a better actor and a musician. She got majorly sidetracked. Good for you, Bonnie. Like go do your thing. So that's what I'm thinking inside.
Yeah.
But I was sent to go like get her to sign her exit paperwork, which was basically like an NDA. And I'm like, meanwhile, Mark Vicente, her husband, he's leaving, and he like, long story short, and this is in the book, there's all these things happening at the same time that I couldn't wrap my head around. I knew I had to get out of the sorority. I'd been branded. I was proud of it that I'd gotten through it without an anesthetic. It was something that because of the trauma, I know I was trauma bonded and like feeling like kind of badass that it's not like running a marathon. Like I was like fueled by that, but I knew that. So once I was in, then Lauren said every month I had to give new collateral, like new something to hold to fortify my commitment. I'm like, what in the actual fuck? People were giving false testimonies about like their parents doing something bad that could hurt their parents, just basically to cut off all sources of safety nets, like more and more and more and more isolation. So I knew that I had to get out of this thing. Didn't know how. I was trying to figure out how to blow it up without my collateral being exposed. Finally, Mark says he's leaving and he won't tell me why until I sign his NDA. So somehow I sign his NDA. He tells me why he's leaving. He's been living in New York where I'm not, but this is where all the worst stuff is. And he says he hears about this women's group and it's a top secret women's group. So basically he's telling me more about the thing that I
you're
know.
Already a part of.
The thing I'm yeah. And he's like, and women are getting these assignments. I've had assignments and some of the assignments have to do with having sex with Keith. And I'm going, oh, fuck. Like people have called us a cult for years. And now even when I got branded, I was like, guys, this is really bad. No pun intended branding. Like this is, people think we're a cult. Like this is the stupidest fucking thing we could do. People find out about this. Like this is ridiculous. You know, now there's sex involved and like, oh my God. And then so somehow under his NDA, I feel safe enough to tell him about the brand.
Yeah.
And then my whole world collapses because all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, we're in a cult. And Keith's a sociopath and he's having sex with everybody and we've been duped and my world's upside down. And that was the beginning of the end. So again, it wasn't the branding. It was figuring, part of this whole thing is that we realized that the symbol on my body is actually Keith's initials.
Ew. Oh my God. You poor thing. Oh my God.
So Keith's initials on my fucking body, a married woman.
Did your husband ever be like, hey, what's that on your body?
No, because this was like 6 weeks between getting branded and finding out. And in this time, we're only in the same city for a few days. Totally. We were actually in separate beds because I was trying to, I had been sleeping with my little baby and I was trying to like break that habit. So it was a whole thing. We were in separate beds. I had my towel around me. We weren't being intimate at that time. He never saw it. Yeah. You know, kids, it's underneath my underwear line. So he may have seen me in my underwear, but would never have seen it.
I gotcha.
Truthfully, I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to be like, what the fuck? And trust me, he had that moment and still wishes he could, punch Keith in the face. But he also knew that. Only
imagine.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
No.
And I think that if he may have gone to jail and that wouldn't have worked either. So it's better that we did the strategy that we did. But go. Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious. Okay. So Mark, you and Mark have this like NDA umbrella. Yeah. Oh my God, come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And then how do you then, if your husband's in the organization and chugging along and they've strategically kept you as ships passing in the night, how do you have to be like, hey, husband?
I told Mark to tell him. I invited Mark to tell him.
Like, I outsourced?
Yeah, I did. I outsourced. Well, also I was terrified. I don't know, like somehow this makes no sense, but I was like, I'm safe from my collateral being released because I told him under an NDA, like somehow that protected me. Okay. So I was like, well, if he tells him, then I won't have broken my vow of secrecy. It was ridiculous. God. It was just crazy. My own So I had him tell him and thankfully Nippy was able to see it for what it was immediately. He was never upset with me. He understood Lauren's
totally
role with me and how this could have happened. And we were, and truthfully, we didn't realize how
engulfed,
how engulfed, but also how low our morale was. So that when we had a reason to leave, we're like, let's leave. I mean, there was a lot, it was a hard thing in terms of it was our community. It was our income. Like I walked away from hundreds of thousands of dollars. Actually, sometimes I still have nightmares where I'm still in NXIVM and I'm staying in because of the income, but I know what's going on. And it's like a nightmare because as soon as we knew what was going on, we were out, but it was like a huge cut of finances, community, everything.
And that's so, again, it's like, and to clarify one thing really quick, when I said that's crazy, that you are not crazy for not wanting to have that conversation with your husband, the layering of isolation and collateral and blackmail and legality that they have buried you underneath is what I find to be absolutely crazy. 100%. But as you described it, it's like a slow drip. And as you said in one of your, I can't remember, it was the TED Talk or something else that I was watching in my research. It's like when you put the frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you put it in cold water and you slowly turn up the temperature, it stays because it can't tell.
It can't tell. And you said isolation. That's another red flag I really want your listeners to know. Any group that encourages you to cut ties with friends and family. And obviously there's extreme examples like Jim Jones and People's Temple. They're in a remote part of the world, a lot of compounds is sort of like the traditional thought of people when people think of cults, but isolation can be emotionally isolated as well. When you're like,
It's the
you know,
worst.
you have like a secret that you're keeping from people, or like, you know, a lot of groups say things like, you know, your friends and family might not understand you now. And you can choose like which friends are in line with your values, which is a subtle way of saying like, get rid of people who aren't doing this work with you,
My
which
God.
definitely happened to us. And luckily, and one of the reasons why I think that we were so okay on the other side is that we did never, I personally never cut all my ties. I
Yeah.
lost a lot of friends, but I did have like my mom who was, you know, there for me the whole time, and just sort of waiting for with open arms for me to wake up.
Oh my gosh. So did she suspect and she was just waiting for you?
Yes. I mean, she didn't know, nobody knew
The extent.
how bad it was.
Yeah.
Like, I think if she knew, anyone knew, they would have gone. I guess some people did over the years, but like even the FBI didn't know what they were looking at until it was actually the branding that gave you needed something physical, because coercion and emotional abuse is very hard to prove. So
Yes.
people had left in the past, and it was like, well, it all seems kind of consensual. Like,
Yeah.
guy seems kind of kooky, but you know, you agreed to this or that, which is
Yep.
why he had us say when we were branded, "Master, would you brand me? It would be an honor." So it looked consensual. And that's actually one of the things that was key evidence in the trial. Is there's recording of him telling one of his key lieutenants who was administering the brandings, have them, you know, have them put their arms above their head so it looks sort of sacrificial, have them do it naked so it's vulnerable, and have them ask to be branded so it looks consensual, something to that effect. So
I
he knew what he was doing.
I feel
Yeah,
physically very sick to my stomach right now just
I know.
thinking about that experience, and I just like am so deeply sorry that you
Thank you.
experienced that.
Thank you.
This it reminds me when you say that the branding really has to be like the physical, you needed that type of physical evidence. And the FBI was like, this seems crazy kooky, but like, and that's
Mm.
why when you talk to so many women who have suffered emotional abuse, which, as you mentioned, can cause horrible disease, ruin people's lives. So many people who have suffered emotional abuse have said, I just wish he would have hit me so someone would believe
Mhm.
me, which is a
Yeah.
horrible thing to say because I do not mean to dismiss people who have been physically abused whatsoever, but
No,
it
I
just
get
like,
that.
yeah. So I just, everyone take that with a grain of salt. But I feel like people
Mhm.
who have suffered so much emotional abuse, which is never just, sometimes it is the screaming and the yelling, but so much of it
Mhm.
often is the gaslighting, the manipulation, the let me tell you what I'm doing while I'm doing it, but make you feel
Mhm.
crazy for thinking that I would actually be doing that. Cause why? I just
Mhm.
said it to you. Why would I actually do that?
Mhm.
And like that is just like death by a thousand cuts.
Yes.
And
Yep.
then, I think shame really is the most suffocating, voice dampening, isolating feeling. And like you
Mhm.
said in the beginning, you really lose touch with you're deprogramming your intuition.
Mhm.
And I think that those are all such dangerous things. And the saddest thing that I see is when women, and I certainly, we've all had moments of this where you stop learning to trust yourself. I think
Mhm.
women find themselves in this situation a lot, which makes me super sad, like physically, like so sad. I could get teary, but
Yeah. Well,
I,
that's the commonality there. And for anyone who's listening who, you know, hopefully they have empathy, and for my story and stories like mine, but people who think, yeah, that never happened to me, that, you know, more
yeah,
often than not, people who think that either it's already happened to them, or they're in something like this right now and they haven't seen it yet. It doesn't have to be a traditional cult. And maybe people wouldn't fall for something like NXIVM, but so many people tell me that, and then they're like, but I am in this, like, there's a relationship, whether it's a friend, but more often than not, there's so many commonalities. In fact, I'd say they're parallel universes with domestic violence,
yeah,
and cults. It's the same thing. It's a cult, and we, in fact, we call it the cult of one. If the abuser is the cult leader and the recipient, and it's not always, but traditionally it's the man, right? Or
mhm,
that's the stereotype anyway. It's a
right,
generalization, but it's a power differential.
hmm,
And the gaslighting is the same. And for those people who've heard the term and they don't really understand it, the abuser and the cult leader both want to slowly erode their victim's autonomy and have them question their reality so that the abuser can exploit them. That's the definition of it. And that comes in many different ways to have the person slowly start to feel crazy and not trust themselves. which erodes the autonomy and their sense of self and all those things. It gets overused. And I do want to make this caveat when people say things like, oh, you're gaslighting. It's possible that the person's gaslighting, but deflection, for example, like let's say you and I are in a relationship and I say, you know, you didn't blah, blah, blah. And you report back saying, well, you didn't blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you're gaslighting me. Maybe, but chances are you're also just deflecting to protect your own self-image, right? So gaslighting gets used incorrectly. Like, I'm not trying to you're not trying to destroy my autonomy. You're just trying to protect your image.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking that love bombing, that can be in a relationship. It can be in like the cult kind of community of like, you know, building you up on these pedestals. And I'm thinking about the sashes and I'm thinking, you know, like all this, just, you're amazing. I'm going to put you on a private jet. Like all these kind of things is kind of these like big grand gestures that when they do something that you want to then confront them on, you're like, well, they wouldn't possibly do that to me because they treat me with so much love in all these other circumstances.
And if there is a level of criticism or something negative, which always happens at some point after the love bombing, right? So you've been love bombed, you're propped up, you feel so good, you feel special, you found your tribe, you found your person, you're in love. And then there's this like, and you're like, did that just happen? Well, it can't have because they love me. Yeah. So you ignore it. Or it's like, well, they're doing that because they love me and you dismiss it. Or maybe they're just having a bad day and you make excuses, right? So there's all these things that we do, especially as women, as a recovering people pleaser. Oh, back to the beginning of your conversation, I want to share some of my situational vulnerabilities. I will say more so than when I wrote Scarred and writing the second book and trying to write something that we can compile to give to people who are wanting to be safe seekers or people who want to protect their children going to college or wanting to get out of something that is culty or heal if they've already been through it. It's a resource guide from A to Z. And in the writing of that, I feel like I've had more self-awareness as to what made me vulnerable other than the physical things of being like, you know, in my 20s and wanting to be in a community and a meaning and purpose. But there was emotional things that I don't think I'd recognized earlier as much in terms of just like my own lack of just self-esteem as a young woman and really wanting the validation and wanting the gold star and feeling so special, and which, you know, rolls into community and all that camaraderie and good stuff. But there's like what was missing in my own growth that I felt like I needed that, which ironically is a question that we used to ask in NXIVM, like, what's missing for you that you need this from the outside world to be okay, which is not something they invented, but that's something that was asked a lot. And I've had to come to terms with, like, you know, even now, why I don't speak up in certain situations because I want to be liked, you know, and how that like affects whether I say yes or no to things. And, you know, I'm still working on this stuff.
I think you are in immense company in that. And I think so many women are just like, I mean, even when I think about like all the political awful things that have been happening and the violence and everything, like, you know, you want to speak up, but you also are like, God, what are people going to think? But also on the flip side of that is like, this is the heaviest thing that any of us can ever process, no matter where you stand on anywhere, anything as a human. So it's like, sometimes we're just quiet because we're processing. And then that's where you can get into the self-gaslighting thing as well, to be like, am I just processing? Am I afraid? Am I this? Am I that? But I'm so grateful that you were vulnerable enough to be like, hey, I was pretty susceptible to this because I really hadn't seen my own worth. And I, you know, sought that externally, which I feel like, I mean, that is just absolutely so common with women.
So
absolutely.
common. Yeah.
So
and then you roll that into like other just life junctures. Like so many people get caught up into cults because they've like moved to a new city and they're looking for community and they join a church or they say yes to an invitation to a book club that turns out to be like a lot of these things that we studied. Every single person we talked to on our podcast is, what did you sign up for? You know, people don't sign up for a cult. What do you think that you were getting? And it's always something really beautiful and really normal and really inconspicuous, which is why we want to talk about it. Because if you go right to the salacious, terrible things, it's obvious what those things are. It's really obvious when you look at my story, what Keith was doing and how bad it is, because it's all exposed now. Yeah. But if I had met you, God, if I'd met you in 2010 and found you then and found out what your values were and invited you to a workshop, you totally would have been all over it. And
absolutely,
we would have done it together. It would have been great. And until it wasn't.
Yeah. Until it literally wasn't. But oh my God, It's right. It's not like they're like, actually, we would love for you to come join our cult. No, no one's being so Captain Obvious about it. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think I just want to recap what some of those like subtle things were. But like,
Sure.
yes, you recognize that you were in a vulnerable state right from the jump. They were like, hey, I want you to sit through the uncomfortable and sort of challenge your what you might think is bad and really essentially abandon it, right? Like abandon
Mhm.
it and disguising that under this is aligning to your values. You came here
Mhm.
on your own will, but anything that makes you question this, I want you to sit with and check at the door. The sort of
Mhm.
the love bombing, the all of the heavy investment, the which like almost to like a deafening level of commitment,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
essentially like
All
you've taken
encompassing commitment.
mm-hmm.
And you see this a
Um,
lot with fitness programs too, by the way, that aren't necessarily
mm,
legit cults, but like can be a little culty, Soul Cycle and Orange Theory and things like that. Like can be, there is a little bit of shame in it. Like you don't show up when you said you were, you're like, there. Anytime somebody's using shame to keep you in line, that's a huge red flag.
huge, huge red flag. I love that. That's such a great example. Anything that is like, right, shaming you. And also, as you mentioned, it was really hard to get like, you couldn't just be like, okay, I'm turning in my resignation or I'm going, to join Shred 415 instead. Or like, you can't just like leave without serious detanglement. And they had so much held over your head. And then, of course,
Yeah.
then it gets into the like top tier stuff of like, women are, being sexually abused, you're being physically branded, you were signing vows of silence. Like, and again,
Yes.
that's the slow boil. But
Mhm.
those are kind of the, if I'm just recapping our conversation, those are kind of the
Yes.
big, big red
I,
flags.
I'm just thinking if there's anything else I didn't mention in terms of
Yeah.
red flags. I think one thing that I didn't cover is if there's a situation where you feel like you can't question, like the
Mhm.
authority is the authority, and if whatever you're signing up for is saying this is the only way, this is the
Ooh.
one path, especially if there's a religious component, someone saying they're talking to God or talking to Jesus.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's I'm very skeptical of that.
Yeah. I don't blame you for being so skeptical. And I mean, also like, I mean, likewise. If you're building your dream business and you know you need to build an email list, but the idea of picking and using an email platform totally overwhelms you, trust me, I get it. But I've got you, girl. Flowdesk is where it's at. Flowdesk is the email marketing platform designed with female entrepreneurs in mind. Think gorgeous, on-brand templates plus powerful workflows that save you hours. I promise you, I've never used an easier email platform with such stunning results. Whether you're sending an email launching a new offer or podcast episode, sharing new news, or trying out a fancy workflow to convert a new email subscriber into a paying customer, Flowdesk helps you show up professionally with ease without spending a ton of time or money. And not to mention, these emails are gorgeous. And because you're a Write Your Own Story podcast listener, you get an exclusive 50% off your first year of Flowdesk. Plus, they'll send you $19 cash back when you join using the link in the show notes. So if you're ready to send stunning emails that convert and actually enjoy the process, click the link in the show notes and give Flowdesk a try. That's 50% off your first year plus $19 back in your pocket. Check out Flowdesk today. It's like your super talented email writing best friend. I promise you won't regret it. Now, back to the episode. Okay, can we talk about how you got out? How was it
Yes.
so hard? What is the escape plan like?
So funny. I'm just editing this section right now in the book,
Oh, no
and
way.
yeah, trying to figure out how much to share because that is in big, in detail in Scarred in the memoir. But I'm
Okay.
in this new book, in the resource book, I'm trying to give people like specifically how to get out in a safe way. And the through line with all of our guests that we've ever interviewed is that if you want to leave, don't tell the leadership. Don't tell your coach, your pastor, your upline, your whoever's in charge of you. Like find a way to get out with, like extricate yourself, whether it's if you're in a physical space, find a way to get out in a safe way. And it's a kind of case by case because
Yeah.
there are compounds, there are places where people are stuck somewhere, and there
Oh,
are places where people are a part of something and it's online. And it's as simple as like, don't log on to the live Zoom. You know what I mean? But they've been trained to, and they're afraid of what's going to happen if they don't, so it's a range. But for us, it was a very, very scary time. We were trying to figure out how to get out without sounding the alarm, because we knew what happened to defectors. We'd seen it. We'd seen people who were being sued into oblivion, and
Right. Sued into oblivion, shamed from the inside. Oh my
yeah.
God. Okay.
And
So
yeah.
what was your escape plan?
So our escape plan was that we were going to do business as usual as we figured out what we were going to do. So I was supposed to go, as Mark told Nippy, we all met up in New York. We weren't in the same city at the same time, and we were supposed to go to upstate New York for the next coach summit. This is June of 2017, and I knew that there was going to be another round of branding, because I had one of my best friends was supposed to fly with me, and the way that she spoke about our mutual friend and how she was going to go early to spend some time with her, I'm like, oh fuck, there's gonna be another branding. I knew because of my role in the organization that they had planned to do that again. And I also knew that if I showed up, that they might be able to get their emotional hooks into me again, or that was a possibility.
Yeah.
In fact, it was my mom who was like, I was just going to go and like business as usual and try to like get my stuff out of there and figure out how to leave. And she's like, I just wouldn't go because you love them, and that could be challenging. And it's true. Like Lauren, I loved her,
Yeah.
even though I knew Keith was bad, I just didn't, and I was worried what would happen if I tried to talk to her. So we went to upstate New York, where we had a condo there, like where we called it our crash pad, but I had a fair amount of stuff there. So we went. Oh man, this was so stressful. Nippy dropped me off at an FBI office in Albany. Mark had arranged an appointment, and I told him everything that I could. And this poor guy was like, did not know what to do with the information. And I was picturing that he'd like rally the troops and go
Get the SWAT team immediately.
Yeah, this is totally what I pictured. That did happen many months later, but it didn't happen right then. Meanwhile, my grandfather was sick in Toronto. He had a cancer diagnosis and was going in for surgery. And this was real. But I used that as an excuse to be like, at first I was like, I'm on my way. I'm in Albany. They knew I was in Albany. I spent the night packing up my home, like putting it all into boxes, figure out what do I need to take with me? This could be shipped later, whatever. Yeah. And then like got on the next train to Toronto, which is a 9-hour train ride, with my 3-year-old. Oh my God. And a bag of food and an iPad. Yeah. And I put the iPad on him with his headset, and I just spent the whole time making phone calls and getting one of my best friends not to come to Albany, canceling flight. This is when I was just like, fuck it all. I was just telling as many people as I could, but I had to be strategic, because I knew that if I told the wrong person, it would get to the leadership, and then I would be a defector, and who knows what they do to me. Yeah. This lasted for a couple of weeks. We were able to have the company or the NXIVM think that we were dealing with stuff, but fine, as we were letting people know. We were trying to stop the next round of branding and
were you like going ourselves like down the pyramid of people?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And one of the things we did, which I think was just so ironic, is that we had this what's called the coach tree, where we would like, if something was happening in the company, like Nancy's coming to Vancouver or whatever, we'd use the coach tree to contact people who contact their people who contact, like using the pyramid to get the information out. And we used the coach tree to get this information out. By the time I got back to Vancouver, pretty much everybody was out, and most people actually didn't even know why Nippy and I were leaving. They just knew we were leaving, and they're like, well, if they're leaving, we're leaving, because they weren't connected in the same way. Yeah, they weren't as devoted to Keith in the same way that the people in Albany were. Yeah. So it was a very harrowing time. Meanwhile, somebody, I think Mark had a connection to somebody at the New York Times, and we were talking to this reporter, and that article came out like June, July, August, September, October, 6 months later. It took 6 months for that article to come out. And those 6 months were very scary, because
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Like, and somewhere in there, like 2 weeks in, there was somebody who called me who was planning on going to Albany and wanted to know my opinion, because I'd heard about the branding. And I had up until that point not told them, because I didn't want my collateral to be released. I was having somebody else who I trusted give the information out. This is very complicated. It's in the book if people want the play-by-play by it, but it was a very scary time. And I was just sort of sending people to her. And this one person called me. She's like, I'm supposed to go to Albany. Like, what should I do? And I was like, oh, for fuck's sakes, do not go to Albany. Do you need me to show you my brand? She's like, oh, you got branded? And I was like, I got branded. Do not go to Albany. Meanwhile, this woman was already in the program, already in the women's group, and had recorded me to prove that I was, I had broken my secrecy. So from that point on, nobody talked to me. I was cut off from everything. And then I left. And then I was like, fuck you all. I was like, guns, like this is going down. And
Yep.
I was so mad. I felt so betrayed. I mean, I still have PTSD, but this was like the worst of it in terms of like, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I was just a shell of myself trying to figure out how to like stop these people and expose them for what they were, and at the same time like raise a 3-year-old.
Right, raise a 3-year-old and be like, you're so fearful of all your collateral being released. But for context, for people listening, the New York Times article, you're on the cover of New York Times showing your brand, right?
Yeah.
Which is like,
yeah,
I have goosebumps head to toe. That is so freaking brave.
Thank you. It's also ridiculously stupid when, in retrospect, when I think back to like, all I was doing was like, I have to stop these people. I wasn't thinking like, this is going to be on the internet for the rest of your life. Like your kid's going to apply to private school down the road, and like the principal could see that, and all they see is sex cult, and they don't understand your role in it. Like, so
you
far,
were the dismantler.
Yeah, I was the dismantler. I wasn't part of the thing, but like, you know, people will think what they think. Ultimately, it's what was it. We didn't know this at the time, but that article sparked the investigation. There was a woman named there's a woman named Moira Penza, who's my personal hero, who spearheaded that, and that moved very quickly. She was like, "This is sex trafficking." I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was sex trafficking.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, because
women were being brought a heroine of women who like were in this polyamorous relationship. You didn't realize it was literally sex trafficking.
Yeah, because people were being coerced into sex acts with their collateral. Because sex trafficking isn't just like women from Romania in a cage who are drugged, who are sold. It's, you know, anytime there's fraud or coercion. And to this day, there are people that say that I'm making this up and I just did it for the book deal or whatever. And that I agreed to it. I never would have agreed to it. I agreed to it under false pretenses, which is like when you have a lie involved, you cannot consent. Or a friend of mine, Dr. Laura Richards, who I'd highly recommend for your podcast, is amazing. And she has been a big speaking out against the P. Diddy case. Oh, wow. And a line that she says, because she's drawing all the correlations. When fear is in the room, consent leaves. I'm gonna butcher this. When fear is in the room, consent goes out the door. Yeah. So you might say yes, but if you're afraid, you're saying yes because there's a reason why you're doing that for your safety.
Yeah. So that's the flavor aid example, you know?
Exactly.
Absolutely terrified because there are gunmen at the door. Okay, I guess I'll drink this.
Yeah. So that people say they do it voluntarily. They're not.
No.
Cassie, people being branded, people being trafficked. It's all the same pattern.
Were you ever fearful for your safety?
Yes, I was. I put extra locks on my doors. We believe we were being surveilled. We don't know that for sure. There was a time when definitely there was somebody following my husband once when he was in New York and like photographing him. It was sorry, not New York, in Atlanta. Definitely. I still am a little bit to this day, you know, a little bit nervous because not everybody's in jail.
Yeah, I hear you. Did Lauren ever sort of take the rose-colored glasses off? And
yes. Yeah, we can't talk because there's a civil case, but she actually ended up waking up. Okay. That's the term we use when people recognize that, like, you know, that stop drinking the Kool-Aid is another way of saying it. Yeah. I was getting prepped to testify against Keith, but because she woke up, because she realized that she was in a cult also, she testified. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. She testified and was the nail in the coffin for Keith. So in that process, she also wrote me a really lovely, apologetic, full ownership letter about, I get teary just thinking about it. Like, in the trial, it was revealed how much Keith fucked with her head and you know, had promised her a baby and had done all these horrific things to drag her along. And she was just doing it for her version of the gold star. Like, and she was in from when she was like 18. Like, she had no hope. And that's,
her brain is not even fully formed.
No. So I have, even though I've not been able to speak to her, I know that she knows that I forgive her, and that's, you know, hopefully one day we'll hug, and I really look forward to that day because I personally need a bit more closure.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And that,
Mhm.
oh, I have so much hope for you and for that day to come. Oh
Thank
God,
you.
it's just insane how much like it's so emotionally driven back to emotional abuse. And I mean, it's just wild how deeply enmeshed and entangled and trauma bonded and blackmailed. I mean, it is incredible.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
All the
So
things.
what actually what was the day like for you when they finally sentenced Keith to jail? And did
Whew.
Keith ever reach out to you or try and get a hold of you during any of this?
He called me, which he never did ever in the whole 12 years that I was there. Once shortly after Mark had like sent in his resignation.
Mhm.
So this was I guess it would have been around the time just before I flew to Albany. So like Mark had sent his resignation. They didn't know that I was waking up or
Mm,
had woken up. And
mhm.
so we'd planned to do business as usual. In other words, we were, like covert spies. We were like, yeah,
Yeah.
everything's fine. Meanwhile, we're like dismantling everything.
Yeah, literally.
So yeah, so at that time I was like, I'm upset. My business partner's left. I don't know why. We'll work it out. I'll be in Albany soon. Hopefully we can talk. Nancy never called me. Nancy never called me, and which was very upsetting because she called herself like my bonus mother. Like I thought we were very close.
Yeah.
I had Nancy more on a pedestal than I did Keith, which
Mm,
is probably why I never, made it into his harem, because I always kind of kept him at arm's length
yeah.
and sort of intuitively didn't feel right around him. And now I know why.
Yeah.
But if you end up watching The Vow, season 2 of The Vow, they play a voicemail that I left her, which was basically like, I was their golden child. Like I did more for their company than her own children in terms of growing it and bringing people in and like financially, and like I was their poster child. And I'm saying I've been hurt,
Yeah.
and you're not even calling me
Yeah.
to see how I'm doing, or maybe even try to EM me to try to get me back or like check in on me. Like, fuck you.
Yeah. Good
It
for
was
you.
it Thank you. And I'd forgotten about it. And then when they made the vow, they're like, "Can we use this?" And I was like, "Holy shit, yes." Because I was like, it's such a slice of a moment. That,
But
and
just
also,
to,
yeah.
no, I was just going to say, just to even hear like the pain and the anger and like all the things that were infused in that voicemail. How do you, okay, so you wake up, it
Mhm.
goes through, like, how do you even begin to figure out how to heal? Yes, I mean, we've talked about you using your voice, and that is a huge part of looking, right down the barrel of everything that has happened to you and standing in your power and speaking your truth. That's got to be immensely liberating and healing. But like, this, I mean, as we know, we've talked about every emotion under the sun.
Mhm.
This is, and you're down financially and you've lost community and you are like faced with a trillion awful emotions. How do you begin to heal from this?
Whew. So that's like chapter 4 of the book. The next book, part
Okay.
4, is my favorite chapter to write, because the
Mm,
healing process has been, um, it hasn't been linear. It's been many things over the past 8 years now. So, and I went through different stages. So, like at first, it was therapy, proper therapy, which was also very difficult because this was a therapy-based program. So like a
oh
lot of
God,
normal
that feels
types
very
of
triggering.
questions. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, don't ask me that. You can't use that word, like alert.
Yeah.
But talking to cult specialists, many of whom later became our guests on our podcast,
Hmm.
because I knew them and they were also cult survivors. Like just having these conversations with people who've been through what we've been through is incredibly supportive and amazing. And this is now an era where there's so much cult recovery information, largely thanks to, I think, The Vow and
Mm.
these documentaries that have been so um, popular, where people want to share and explain. And because of that, there's more books and there's more podcasts and more documentaries. So there's like therapy, self-education. Meanwhile, getting my time back. Like my time was so
Yeah.
enveloped by this organization. Like when I got to go through my iCal and delete all of my recurring phone calls and commitments and conference calls, there was like literally 40 hours of commitments every week of just like phone calls that I had to be on.
Oh my God.
And yeah, towards my coaching exchange towards the
Mm.
company, like you had to, whatever. So getting my time back and then finding out what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to go to the farmer's market and I wanted to make pancakes for now I have two kids, for my children. And, there were so many weekends that were taken up, and just, my life in general, but like, I never had a Saturday. Like if there was a free weekend, I was going to either go to Mexico or go to Seattle or go to New York to take a training or shadow coach a training or fill a training. Like I always had something to do. So all of a sudden I'm like, what am I doing? How am I filling my time? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time in nature, a lot of hiking. Nippy and I are really into, we call, forest bathing, cold plunging, like finding glacial waters and getting it.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah. My personal journey has included, I microdose mushrooms, which has been really helpful for me. Being able to be with ex-members and speak freely about what happened. Like there were so many years where I was muzzled and I didn't know. And now I could say like, oh, so-and-so was a total bitch then, you know what I mean? Like I never would have said that, would have been dishonorable.
Yeah.
It would have been not appropriate. So yeah, it's been a long journey of recovery. The podcast has actually been very therapeutic for me because I feel less alone. I meet these people and I'm like, oh, that happened to me too. Even to the point, like our earlier episodes, I listen back, they're very cringy because I'm the whole time like, oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, my Nancy did that to me too. And like, I'm so excited. Now I've learned to just sort of listen and let the guests tell their story. But it made me feel less alone, but it also like helped me go back to one of the reasons why I joined NXIVM in the first place, in addition to the other things I mentioned earlier, is I do love helping people.
Yeah.
And that was very rewarding for me. And now I get to, on the other side of it, still help people, but in a different way. And that just makes me feel like that's my woo-woo part of it. Like it all comes full circle. Like I'm still getting to do what I want to do. I get to do this, I got to contribute to something that's, obviously had a huge benefit for a lot of people. And, that makes it all not for naught. That's a triple negative. It makes it not for, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm like, no, I was tracking with not for not. Yeah.
It's not
for nothing. Not for, right.
You know what I mean?
It makes it something.
Something. Yeah. And I can point to that and be like, okay, well, at least that's a silver lining. That's how I've had to do it. If I think about like, oh my God, I left my 30s. I gave my 30s to Keith Raniere. Like that's very depressing. So I have to go, I spent my time in an organization. I learned a lot about communication and about people and how to function. And then I realized that it was actually bad. And now I get to help people avoid, escape from, and heal from abuse and coercive situations.
And you're literally like one of the bravest people I've ever met, because it's got to be absolutely terrifying to stand up to make every single one of those phone calls. And then even though he's behind bars, I'm sure there's fear somewhere. And you get on your show and you talk about this and you're brave enough to look it in the face and continue to help people. I mean, just in the last couple of minutes, you have hit on so many themes that continue to bubble up on this show, which is just makes my heart soar, because you've talked about, when you are in community of people that have also experienced what you've experienced, you realize that you're not alone. And I know, what that feels like to have all that pressure released from the balloon that has just the tight grip on your chest, to be like, you know what, I am not the only one who struggled through this. And that you have reframed, you could sit there and mourn in your 30s, and that is also very legitimate. And I'm sure that comes and goes in waves, but then to also be able to reframe it and be like, here's what was the good that came from it. And to, embrace the pivot, this insane, massive pivot that happened to you and make your own pivot to be like, this is what I'm going to do with it. I think the most fulfilled women that I speak to are those who have experienced something and turn around and help those behind them. And, and you have learned so much in that company, and you had so many natural gifts going into that they clearly tapped into, but now you've been able to harness them solely based on your own, like you mentioned, soul purpose. As you're walking in the woods and you're like, what do I want to do? And here it is. You want to speak up. And I think it's incredible.
Oh, thank you. Making me verklempt.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, every word, truly. If people are fascinated by your story, if you have sparked, oh my God, am I in one of those? If you have, lit a match for someone who is like, I'm not in a cult, but I might be in an emotionally abusive relationship. If people want to connect more with your work, you have a full body of work, but can we just hit it real quick so people know where to find you?
Thank you. I'm on Instagram at Sarah Edmondson. That's Edmondson. People always forget the second D.
Mhm.
If they hear the whole story, I know I've mentioned scarred.
Yeah.
And I've also, by the way, sidebar, I've had this removed.
Yeah.
I had plastic surgery a couple of years ago. So it's just a little white line, a little scar.
Yeah.
That's just a reminder, but it's no longer his initials on me, in case anyone's wondering.
If that's not a
Uh,
metaphor for life, I don't know what is.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
A little bit culty. It's on Instagram as well. Our next book, Nippy and I are writing it together, is
Mhm.
at sarahed.com/book. If people want to
Okay.
pre-order, which really helps us a lot. And that should
Yeah.
be out, we're hoping, by end of November, in time for Cult Awareness Day and month. And that's our main thing. The podcast is anywhere you listen to podcasts. We have
Yeah.
a Patreon if people want to do that, and there's bonus content. That's really, I feel like that's a very safe community for people who want to um, you know, have a safe survivor space. Because guess what? Even the survivor community can be a little bit culty.
Ooh.
So yeah, there. I mean, it's the same. That's one of our sound bites is that any group can become culty. Not a full cult, but have those dynamics that we've talked about
Yeah.
that are. We don't even have to call them cult anymore. And this is one of the things I really want to leave with people. People get a little tendency to be like, "Oh, I'm not in a cult. I would never join a cult." And whether it's their MLM or whatever they're feeling defensive about, let's take the word cult off the table. Is this thing healthy for you? Is it
Mm.
toxic? Do you feel like you can be your full self? Are you hiding? Do you feel like you're being silenced? Do you feel like you might be shunned or like lose friends if you leave? It's not necessarily a cult, but is it healthy for you? And that's what I hope to leave your listeners with. And if they're not sure and they want to reach out on Instagram, I try to respond to every message. And if I can't help, because I'm not a doctor or, I don't have my PhD or whatever, but I can always point people in the right direction because there's a lot of professionals in my space who know what to do.
It's absolutely incredible, the work that you do. And clearly your volume is also incredible. Sarah, thank you for shedding light on something that is just like, that for those of us who haven't been in one who are like, I only see it in movies, or like, thank you for shedding light on what is really truly happening in the world and for all the work that you do. You guys, this episode is not only fascinating, but super important and impactful. Please share this episode. And Sarah, thank you again for your time. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you? And just remember, I'm rooting for you, and you've totally got this.